So here is the overview of today's conversation. So we are having a conversation about IRS Form 1065 with no income, right? What do you have to do? So here is the overview. First things first. Do you need to file a tax return for an LLC with no activity? That's the big question, $1 million question a lot of folks want to have an answer to. Well, there may be some years where a limited liability company has zero business activity. Newly formed LLCs may not officially begin operating as a business for a year or more, and older LLCs may slowly become irrelevant without being properly dissolved. The only thing is that you have to understand, if you're an older LLCs, besides filing for taxes, you also have other state regulatory requirements. For example, filing an annual return, an annual form for, and in some cases, in some states, you have to pay something. So, but this is actually another topic for another day. One thing I want to say here is that LLCs that have become inactive or have no income may still be obligated to file a federal income tax return. Everything depends on your situation. I'll explain later on. Filing requirements will depend on how the LLC is taxed. An LLC may be taxed as a corporation or partnership, or it may be totally disregarded as an entity with no requirements to file. Let me break it down a little further for you. So when you have an LLC, you have three ways that you can be taxed if you do not elect anything else. So you can be taxed as a sole proprietorship. So that's if you're a single member LLC. So basically the IRS is looking at you as a disregarded entity. You can be taxed as a partnership. So basically, if you are a multi-member LLC, you can be taxed as a partnership. But so that's the second option. The third option is if you do elect something, and so you'll be taxed based on the election you made. So if you elect to be taxed as an S corporation, then you have to file Form 1120S. But if you do elect to be taxed as a corporation, as a just regular corporation, as a C corporation, then you have to file Form 1120. In some cases, you can actually choose not to do anything. In other words, you just stay whatever you are. So in that case, you're not actually filing. You don't have to file anything if you're a single member LLC. All you have to do and take care of your Schedule C. I'll explain this later on. So I want to talk about the tax elections. By the way, welcome back to the show. Really appreciate having you here, and it's a very wonderful conversation we're having about IRS Form 1065 with no income. This year, what do? So what are the tax elections that we are talking about? So when an LLC only has one member, the IRS will automatically ignore it regarding federal tax liability. That's what I was just talking about when I just mentioned the phrase disregarded entity. This is because the LLC member's expense and income will appear on his or her individual tax return. Okay, this is really important. And so what happens here is that everything flows through your Schedule C. You don't have to prepare anything at the business level. You just prepare everything at the 1040 level, at the individual level. Pretty straightforward, right? When an LLC has two or more members, the IRS will automatically treat this as a partnership. So this is where we have we're talking about a multi-member LLC. So the IRS, if you do not elect otherwise, the IRS will treat your business as a partnership. So you have to file Form 1065. Therefore, the LLC will file an informational return to report their income, gains, losses, deductions, and credits, etc. Now, a Form 1065 is considered an informational return because you don't pay taxes on the form itself. You basically are given, it's like FYI, heads up to the IRS. Hey, listen, we have made this amount of money. We just want to let you know. What the IRS will do is they will actually take your data and they will cross-check what the individual members have filed to make sure everything is accurate. Nobody's playing games. Okay? A partnership does not pay tax on its income, but passes through any profits or losses to its partners. And partners must include partnership items on their tax or information returns, okay? An LLC has the option to change this default tax arrangement and instead decide to be taxed like a corporation. That's what I just said. The LLC can say, listen, I don't like this, whatever is here. I just want to be taxed as a corporation. When we talk about corporation, we're speaking about an S corporation or as a C corporation. So to accomplish this, the LLC needs to file Form 8832 with the IRS. Okay, this is where it can actually choose to be a corporation. But if you want to become it can be a C corporation. If you want to become an S corporation, it has to file Form 2553. Let me quickly talk to you about filing for disregarded entities. By the way, folks, I would just want to remind everybody of today's topic. We're having a conversation about IRS Form 1065 with no income. What do you have to do? And so I want to quickly break down the filing for disregarded entities. So when they're not treated as a separate entity, LLCs are taxed similar to sole proprietorships. What I'm trying to say here is that if you're listening to me right now, you're a single member LLC, you're an independent contractor, you are self-employed individuals, you're just your own boss. That even if you're LLC, from a legal perspective, not a problem. Your personal assets are preserved from any liability, not a problem. But from a tax perspective, the IRS is looking at you and thinking, hey, listen, we don't see any confusion between your personal. We don't see any segregation, rather, between your personal expenses and your business expenses. So we are going to look at you as a disregarded entity. In other words, your expenses and income are filed on Schedule C of your personal tax return. And Schedule Cs must be filed for all LLCs that generate income of more than $400 annually. Okay, so this is really important. So when we talk about filing for disregarded entities, that's what we are actually talking about. A single member LLC without any expenses to deduct and no business activity is not required to file the LLC's income on Schedule C. Let me repeat that because this is really important. A single member LLC without any expenses to deduct and no business activity is not required to file the LLC's income on Schedule C. Remember, the member will need to file an individual tax return anyway and may need to complete a Schedule C for self-employment income, but at the business level, you don't have any requirements. So this is really important because you can actually organize an LLC and things happen. The LLC is kind of slow or dormant, even where these things happen. But when those things are happening, you need to make sure that you are not running afoul of federal and state regulatory and fiscal laws. So you always have to comply. Let me talk to you about filing for an LLC partnership. So I just spoke about filing for a disregarded entities. Now let's talk about filing for an LLC partnership. So what will happen here is that, as I just explained to you, when you have an LLC, right, you can choose to be taxed. I mean, you don't have to choose. If you don't do anything, if you don't elect otherwise, the IRS will tax you as a sole proprietorship or as a partnership. So an LLC is taxed like a partnership and will need to file an informational partnership return unless it hasn't had any expenses that it can claim as deduction or credits and did not receive any income during the course of the year. What I'm trying to say here is that an LLC that is taxed as a partnership with no business activity will not be required to submit a partnership return unless there are credits or expenses that the LLC will actually claim. So the whole thing here is that if you have no business activity, you don't have to file. However, if you believe that this will help you, this will actually help put more cash into the members' pockets, then file. Okay, then file. So, but if you choose to file, what will happen here is that you have to file Form 1065. And there are requirements. There are actually requirements here. So when you file Form 1065, make sure that you attach all the relevant Schedules K1, and you have to distribute those as Schedule K1 all the shareholders, to all the members. See, when we talk about LLC tax as a partnership, it means that the LLC has more than one member. Because if the LLC had only one member, we'll be talking about a single member LLC. Hence, we'll be talking about the sole proprietorship tax status, the disregarded entity tax status. But so if we have a partnership, we're having a multi-member LLC. In that case, Form 1065 will actually apply. But it's really important to understand that you only file taxes. Now, one thing we tell our clients all the time is that you want to file no matter what. You really want to file no matter what. Why? Because whenever you file, you're basically telling the IRS, you are giving the IRS some kind of info about your business. If you don't file it at all, you are breaking the chain. You are breaking the communication chain. So we tell all our clients, please always file. Now let's talk about filing for an LLC corporation. So this is really important. Now, I want to remind everybody again of today's topic. We're having a very sweet conversation about IRS Form 1065 with no income. What do you do? So corporations must file a federal tax return annually, even if they have no income. Because you know why? Because corporations file and pay taxes at the company level, and also the shareholders file and pay taxes at the individual level. That's why experts talk about double taxation. So even if you have no activity, you have to file taxes. What I'm trying to tell you here is that if you're an LLC and you have elected to be taxed as a corporation by filing form at 8832, then you need to file taxes no matter what. Okay, so therefore, when an LLC decides to be taxed as a corporation, it is agreeing to submit an annual tax return in perpetuity. Remember, your LLC may need to file a federal tax return even if it has no business activity. Even if there's nothing at all, you still are mandated to submit an annual tax return. Okay, it will solely depend on your LLC tax filing status. So be sure to file on time to avoid any penalties and fines. And when we talk about the deadline for a C corporation, it's April 15th. For an S corporation, it's March 15th. So please be aware of those differences here. And one thing I want to say here is that obviously when we talk about corporations versus when we talk about C corporations versus S corporations, there are differences, there are pros and cons. Now, it really depends on what kind of objective you're trying to reach by actually electing to be taxed as a corporation. But one thing you need to make sure that you have is that, please, if you have any question, if you have any confusion, don't hesitate to hire the right expert, to hire somebody who really understands the intricacies of business taxes, especially when it comes to business taxes when you have no activity. It's really important. We always say this on all our shows. Tax experts do not cost money. They save you money. People kind of look at tax experts as individuals or professionals who are costing them money. But if you have a business, the potential you can actually save by having the right advice is way more than the losses you may have if you actually do things without knowing. Okay. Let's talk about the need to file a separate LLC tax return. A lot of people are asking that question, and in today's conversation, I want to address that. So it's really important to understand that LLCs are not registered federally. No. The whole thing about having a partnership, having a corporation, having an LLC, having an LP, having a limited partnership, all those things happen at the state level. There's no federal registration possible here. Even sole proprietorship, if you choose to have a DBA, a doing business as, you're not registered federally. It happens at the state level. So this is really important. So if you are registered, let's say in Ohio, even if you have to pay taxes at the federal level, you still need to register in Ohio. Okay, so it's important to understand that because LLCs are registered with the states in which they are incorporated, they are not required to file federal tax returns unless they have decided to file as corporations. If they have chosen to file as corporations, they will have fallen into one of two categories. So you have a single member LLC filing form Schedule C and a multi-member LLC filing form 1065. And some states will require LLCs to submit separate LLC tax returns. So to answer the question I just asked, it really depends. It depends on the states you're in. Some states might say, listen, we want you to file a separate LLC tax return because we're trying to reconcile our data here. So every state has their own thing. But one thing I want to say, and I want to go back to what I said earlier about the need to have expert advice. They need to have experts on at the table to tell you exactly. Because what happens here is that I would say the majority of small businesses, they actually think of taxes around tax time, but that's the wrong way of doing things. You basically have to plan taxes. Tax planning is an entire profession. It's an entire, I think, an entire section that allows you to actually reduce, quote unquote, optimize your taxes in the long run. So you don't actually start planning taxes in February or March. You plan taxes all year long. It is basically a year-long exercise. Let's talk about, and this is the last part of this show, when your company made little or no money. Okay, so usually LLCs, they have elected to be taxed as a general partnership or a sole proprietorship, are not required to file a federal tax return with the IRS. But remember though, they still need to file Schedule C under individual 1040. A few states require partnerships or sole proprietorships to file tax returns, even though they are pass-through entities. Again, going back to what I said earlier, make sure that you have the right information from your state tax authorities and even your local tax authorities. LLCs that have decided to be taxed as corporations will have to file a federal tax return annually. That we already said, regardless of business activity. Okay, that's established. Everybody knows that. Therefore, it may be a costly error to change the default tax status from a partnership or a sole proprietorship to a corporation if the business has no activity. One thing I want to say here is that, businesses take time to make money. I mean, you can start a business today, let's say this year, and next year, after 12 months, nothing has happened, or after 24 months, nothing has happened. Not because you're a bad business manager, or because the industry is kind of crappy, but it just happens that there is a constellation of things, visible or invisible for that matter, that make your business or the products or services you are offering not appealing to customers at specific points in time. And you have to accept that as part of life, as part of business life. Okay, so the thing is that if your company made little or no money, make sure that you stay in the default case, that you do not elect any tax status at the federal level. No, you can elect a tax status at the federal level once you start making money, once you're comfortable about the direction that your business needs to take, once you have actually established some kind of level of some reasonable level of liquidity. In other words, you are cash awash. You are awash in cash. Your business is awash in cash, and you're comfortable that now you have actually nailed the right strategy to grow. But until that phase, I want you to hold off on anything and don't do anything at all. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. I was just having a conversation with you about IRS Form 1065 with no income, and we spoke about a couple of things. Do you need to file a tax return for an LLC with no activity? What are the tax elections? Filing for disregarded entities. We spoke about filing for an LLC partnership. We spoke about filing for an LLC corporation. And do you need to file a separate tax return? It really depends. And when your company made little or no money, what are the implications? Thank you for your attention again. I'll speak to you another time, but until then, remember, stay marvelous.